So you just spent, 15 minutes praying a 5-decade rosary. You set the beads down.
Right.
And you realize you cannot remember a single word you just said. I mean, your mind is completely blank. You fell right into the autopilot trap.
Oh, it is a profoundly frustrating moment. And, you know, if you are listening to this deep dive right now, just kind of nodding along because this happens to you constantly, let me offer some immediate reassurance here. You are not a failure.
Yeah, you aren't uniquely broken or, bad at praying.
Exactly. I mean, think about St. Teresa of Avila, right? One of the greatest mystics in history.
Yeah.
She actually described her own brain during vocal prayer as a wild horse that she constantly had to rein back in.
A wild horse. Wow.
Yeah. So your mind wandering is just human nature. The problem isn't you. The problem is that you are likely using a broken method.
And that is exactly our mission today. We're going to diagnose why this autopilot amnesia happens, looking at the actual mechanics of attention. But more importantly, we're going to unpack a 500-year-old fix.
Yeah.
Something that transforms the rosary from this tedious blank mind chore back into a rich, deeply contemplative experience.
But before we get to the cure, we really need to understand the illness. We need to look at the structural design of the prayer itself.
Right, because the rosary is engineered as, well, a 2-layer prayer.
It is. So the first layer is vocal. This is the rhythm of the Our Father, the 10 Hail Marys, the Glory Be, the physical moving of the beads.
And then the second layer is mental.
Yes. This is the meditation on a specific gospel scene, which the Church calls a mystery. Depending on the day of the week, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops outlines specific mysteries to meditate on: the joyful, sorrowful, glorious, or luminous.
So the vocal provides this physical rhythm, but the mental layer is where the actual engagement with the life of Christ is supposed to happen. It's viewing the gospel through the lens of his mother.
Beautifully put, but the friction comes when that mental layer evaporates.
Mm.
You announce the mystery, say, the carrying of the cross, and literally 5 seconds later, the mystery is gone. The words just run on their own automatic track.
Yeah, and at that point, the prayer has degraded into what Christ explicitly warned against in the Gospel of Matthew, right? Chapter 6. Vain repetitions.
Exactly. The vocal layer has completely hijacked the mental layer.
It really reminds me of singing happy birthday
Yeah.
to someone. Like, you can be holding the cake, looking right at your friend, singing the song perfectly on pitch, while your brain is entirely somewhere else.
Mentally walking down the grocery aisle, trying to remember if you need milk.
Exactly. The words are flawless, the rhythm is there, but the meaning is completely hollow.
And the symptoms of that hollowness are entirely predictable. I mean, your mind drifts to unread emails, to a random argument from 3 days ago, to your to-do list.
Yep. The beads keep moving, but the rosary has just become this 15-minute checkbox.
And the tragedy is, for adults trying to build a daily prayer habit, this silent frustration is often where the devotion quietly dies. They just assume they aren't cut out for it.
Which is wild, because even the highest levels of the Church have recognized this systemic issue. Pope St. John Paul II practically sounded the alarm on this in his 2002 apostolic letter, Rosarium Virginis Mariae.
Oh, absolutely. And this was a man who prayed the rosary daily. He called it his absolute favorite prayer.
Wait, really? His favorite?
His absolute favorite. Yet he wrote that without contemplation, the rosary becomes a body without a soul.
Wow. A body without a soul. That's intense.
He chose that language deliberately. A body without a soul is a corpse. He warned that the recitation was in danger of becoming a mechanical repetition of formulas, degenerating into a lifeless and tedious exercise.
I mean, calling your favorite devotion a soulless corpse is a devastating critique.
It really is.
But if a pope recognized this was happening to faithful Catholics everywhere, it begs the question, how did the contemplative part get so underemphasized in the first place? How did we collectively lose the soul of the prayer?
Well, John Paul II pointed out that over generations, the sheer momentum of the vocal recitation simply swallowed the meditative one. I mean, think about how we teach things.
Right.
The vocal part is easy to teach to children. It's easy to measure. It's easy to do in a large group setting. You can hear when a room full of people are saying the Hail Mary together.
Oh, sure. But you can't hear if they're meditating.
Exactly. So the metric of success became finishing the prayers rather than contemplating the mysteries.
That makes total sense.
But his prescription to fix this wasn't some new invention. He urged a return to a method that has literally been hiding in plain sight for centuries.
And the origins of this fix are wild. because it was codified 400 years before John Paul II by a critically wounded soldier. We have to go back to northern Spain in 1521.
Yes. We were talking about Ignatius of Loyola.
Right.
He was a Basque nobleman, a soldier obsessed with chivalry and romance, fighting at the siege of Pamplona. And during the battle, a cannonball essentially shattered his leg.
A completely life-altering, gruesome injury, especially given 16th century medicine. I mean, he went through horrific primitive surgeries just to survive.
He did. And following those surgeries, he faced a brutal, agonizing recovery period where he was confined to a bed for months.
Just stuck there.
Stuck. He asked for romance novels to pass the time, to fuel his fantasies of courtly love and heroism. But the house he was recovering in didn't have any. The only two books available were A Life of Christ and a collection of saints' lives.
So out of sheer desperate boredom, he started reading them.
He did, and as he read, he noticed something fascinating about human psychology. When he daydreamed about chivalry and worldly pursuits, it felt exciting in the moment, but left him feeling dry and hollow afterward.
Okay.
But when he spent time vividly imagining the lives of the saints and the scenes from the Gospels, he felt a lasting, deep sense of peace and consolation. This realization sparked a profound conversion. It led him to eventually write the Spiritual Exercises, composed between 1522 and 1548. And within those exercises, he introduced a revolutionary technique for prayer.
Composition de lugar. Composition of place.
Exactly. His instruction was radically simple. He argued that you shouldn't just think about a gospel scene as a theological abstraction. You must actively place yourself inside it.
Okay, wait. I have to push back here because when I first encountered this concept, my immediate reaction was, I'm supposed to play pretend.
Right.
Like I'm sitting in my living room and I'm supposed to close my eyes and just make up a historical fiction in my head. Honestly, that sounds like complicated daydreaming, not prayer.
That is the most common modern objection to Ignatian contemplation. But we have to look at the underlying neurological mechanics of why he suggested this.
Okay.
Ignatius intuitively understood something about the brain that modern psychology confirms. When you're trying to just think about a massive theological concept like the incarnation or redemption, your brain treats it like an abstract math problem.
It's too big.
It's way too big. It easily slips into a purely analytical mode, or worse, it gets incredibly bored and actively searches for a distraction.
Because the brain is fundamentally a sensory engine. It wants input to process.
Precisely. When you engage your imagination to build a sensory image, when you mentally feel the cold stone of a floor, or see the dust in the air, or hear a crowd shouting, you anchor the mind's attention.
You give that sensory engine a job to do.
Yes. You stop analyzing the theology and you start the practice of attentive looking. You become a witness. And attentive looking is what grounds the heart in the reality of the gospel.
Okay, so let's break down the mechanics. Say I want to rescue my rosary from the autopilot trap tomorrow morning using this 16th century method. I've got my beads. I'm sitting down. What am I doing differently?
The application starts with what we can call the 10-second rule.
The 10-second rule.
Normally, you announce a mystery, the first joyful mystery, the Annunciation, and you immediately launch into the Our Father. The Ignatian method demands a pause. You take 10 full seconds before the decade begins to build the scene.
Let's use the Annunciation as a worked example. How do I build it?
You start with the physical environment. You picture a small, humble room in Nazareth. Maybe you imagine a linen curtain shifting in a slight breeze.
Okay, I can see that.
You visualize the sunlight cutting through the window, catching the dust motes in the air. You see a young woman, Mary, praying. And then the sudden, overwhelming appearance of the angel Gabriel, standing where there was no one a moment before. You mentally place yourself in the corner of that room, simply watching.
So the scene is set. I can see the dust. I can feel the quiet of the room. But, and here's the catch, I still have an Our Father and 10 Hail Marys to pray.
Right.
The moment my mouth starts moving, my brain is going to want to drop the scene and focus on the words. How do I maintain that composition of place?
By using the vocal prayers to drive a slow zoom through the scene, you attach one specific detail of your mental image to each Hail Mary.
Oh, interesting.
So, for the first Hail Mary, you just focus on Gabriel's posture as he delivers the message. For the second Hail Mary, you look at the expression of shock or awe on Mary's face.
And as I move down the beads, I'm basically moving through the chronological beats of the story.
Yes. By the third bead, you are listening to her ask, "How can this be?" By the seventh bead, you hear her actual fiat, her "let it be done."
Wow.
And by the 10th Hail Mary, Gabriel has departed, and you are picturing Mary sitting alone in the room, processing that the history of the world has just changed.
The best analogy I can think of for this is being a film director storyboarding a movie scene frame by frame.
Oh, that's good.
The vocal prayer, the Hail Mary, provides the pacing.
Yeah.
It's the ticking clock of the scene. But your imagination is providing the camera angles. You are literally directing the mystery in your mind's eye.
And consider what that does to your perception of time. A decade prayed this way still only takes about 3 minutes.
Really, just 3 minutes.
It is the exact same duration as a vocal-only decade prayed on autopilot. But the qualitative difference is staggering. Instead of rushing through a chanted formula trying to get to the end, you've spent 3 minutes steeped in vivid contemplation.
The quality of the attention shifts entirely. But let's be fiercely realistic about modern attention spans.
Let's do it.
We are screen-addled. Our brains are fragmented by push notifications, short-form video, and constant context switching. For a lot of people listening to this, holding a mental movie camera steady for 3 unbroken minutes is going to feel cognitively impossible.
That's completely fair.
The camera's going to drop.
When imagination alone isn't enough to hold the mind, what are the tactical fallbacks?
Well, spiritual directors have dealt with cognitive drift long before smartphones existed. There are several highly practical hacks designed to anchor a restless mind, acting as a bridge when your imagination is exhausted. The first is the single-word trigger.
How does a single word stop the drift? It acts as a pattern interrupt. Before you begin the vocal recitation of each Hail Mary, you literally speak one word aloud that anchors you to the scene.
Give me an example.
Suppose you are meditating on the Nativity. Before the first bead, you say cold. Then you pray the Hail Mary. Before the second bead, you say straw. Then manger, star, shepherd.
Ah.
Neurologically, saying the word aloud snaps the brain out of its default mode network, which is where the mind wandering happens, and forces it back to the sensory reality of the mystery.
It's a verbal guide rope. It catches your attention right at the moment it usually tries to wander off to your grocery list.
Exactly. Another widely used tactic is the scriptural rosary. This takes the guide rope concept further by inserting a single verse of scripture before each Hail Mary.
So you're reading a line before every bead.
Right. It weaves the meditation explicitly into the vocal rhythm, giving your analytical brain a piece of text to process while your imagination builds the scene.
And people might think these are modern inventions for modern distractions, but the historical record proves otherwise. Medieval Dominicans developed something called Bilder-Rosenkranz. Yes. Which are essentially picture rosaries, specifically for worshipers who could not read and struggled to hold the mysteries in their minds.
They did.
Yeah.
These were essentially physical guides with a small illustration for each mystery placed right next to the beads for that decade. The Church has always understood that sometimes you need external, tangible help to anchor the imagination.
That makes total sense.
The physical picture did the heavy lifting, lowering the cognitive load so the contemplative prayer could actually happen.
Which perfectly sets up the modern equivalent. If the medieval world had picture rosaries, our modern world has audio anchors. A specific tool mentioned in the research is an app called Ave Audio.
Right.
And just to clarify the spelling for everyone listening, that is A-V-E, but it's pronounced Ave, like the Latin Ave Maria.
Ave Audio,
Yeah.
exactly.
So the premise is that you listen to a recorded Hail Mary to keep the cadence steady while you pray. But I have to ask the obvious question here. Is relying on an app or an audio recording cheating? Doesn't that mean you are basically outsourcing your prayer?
It is outsourcing, but it's not cheating. It's strategic division of labor, perfectly aligned with that medieval picture rosary concept.
So,
When you struggle with distraction, the sheer cognitive effort of remembering the words, maintaining the rhythm, and keeping track of which bead you are on takes up a significant amount of working memory.
it leaves very little mental RAM available for the actual composition of place.
Precisely. If an audio track like Ave Audio is carrying the steady cadence of the vocal layer for you, it frees up your entire mental capacity. You let the recording do the speaking so you can do the looking.
Wow.
Remember John Paul II's core point, the vocal rhythm exists solely to support the mental meditation. The words are the body, the contemplation is the soul. If an audio anchor helps you breathe the soul back into the prayer in a highly distracted world, it is a tool worth using.
It also forces a deliberate pacing. A meditated rosary should take 20 to 25 minutes. If you are blasting through it in 12 minutes, you are racing.
Oh, completely.
Slowing down the physical cadence gives your mental cadence room to actually explore the scene. But look, even with 16th century Ignatian techniques, single-word triggers, and Ave audio keeping the pace,
Yeah.
well, the listener's still going to get distracted.
Yep,
The wild horse is still going to bolt at some point.
inevitably. And this brings us to a crucial point about the anatomy of wandering and how we treat ourselves in the process. Persistent distraction is not a moral failure. It is the reality of having a human brain.
Right.
St. Francis de Sales offered profound wisdom on this. He taught that the act of gently returning your attention to the mystery again and again is the meditation.
Wait, the returning is the prayer, not just the unbroken focus.
Yes. Francis de Sales warned against scolding yourself when you notice the drift. Think about what happens when you catch yourself thinking about work during a decade. You get frustrated.
Oh, yeah. I'm so terrible at this, I can't even focus for 3 minutes.
Exactly. That internal scolding requires analysis and emotion, which ends up wasting more of your attention than the initial distraction did. The fix is to simply notice the drift, drop the frustration, gently pull your mind back to the dust in the room at Nazareth, and continue.
It's the exact same mechanism as going to the gym. A lot of people think that if their mind wanders during prayer, they're failing the workout. But catching your mind wandering and actively pulling it back to the mystery, that pull is the bicep curl.
That's a great way to put it.
You are building the neurological pathway of sustained attention. The wandering isn't a failure. It is the raw material required for the reps. You can't build the muscle without the resistance of distraction.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. We also have to be intellectually honest about context and physical setting, though.
Oh, for sure.
Praying a rosary while you are exhausted, sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic on your evening commute, is naturally going to be a highly distracted experience. Your brain is scanning for threats and processing the stress of the day.
Yeah, you cannot expect the same level of deep Ignatian contemplation there as you would sitting in a quiet room at 6 a.m. with your phone left in another room. Context radically dictates your capacity for focus.
And what about seasons of severe stress? The research points out that if you are in a period of life where your anxiety or trauma is so high that engaging the imagination is genuinely impossible, the rosary isn't a mandatory test you have to pass.
Right, the church has a vast treasury of traditions.
Absolutely. If the cognitive load of the rosary is too much, there are surrender prayers. A novena, which is traditionally a 9-day prayer of petition, can sometimes just be a simple act of relinquishment.
Like the Surrender Novena.
Yes, the Surrender Novena is explicitly designed for a racing, anxious mind. It relies on simply giving up control rather than building complex mental scenes. The ultimate goal is connection with God, not forcing yourself through a frustrating cognitive exercise if your current neurological state won't allow for it.
So, bringing all of these mechanics into focus, here is the call to action for you, the listener. Tonight, or maybe tomorrow morning, try this composition of place method for just 1 decade.
Just one.
Yeah, do not overwhelm yourself by trying to perfectly direct a 5-decade, 20-minute epic movie right out of the gate.
Start small.
Pick the first mystery. Take the 10 full seconds before you start. Build the physical scene in your mind. See the linen curtain. See the dust in the light. Map one specific detail of the scene to each Hail Mary. Just test the method.
As you do, keep in mind that you aren't strapping on some new, complicated burden to your daily routine. You are utilizing a 500-year-old rescue route. It was designed by a wounded soldier who deeply understood the sensory needs of human nature and is meant to breathe the soul back into the body of your prayer.
It takes a devotion that has devolved into an autopilot chore and restores it to the cinematic, immersive experience it was always engineered to be.
It really does. But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, one that extends far beyond the 15 minutes you spend with a rosary.
Okay, let's hear it.
The tradition of the Church applies this Ignatian method to many forms of prayer-like meditating on the gifts of the Spirit. But consider the broader secular implications of this specific skill. We just spent this entire deep dive discussing how sensory, imaginative immersion can make a 2,000-year-old gospel scene feel utterly alive and present in your living room.
It forces you to actually look at what is in front of you.
Exactly. Now, what happens if you apply that exact same attentive looking to your mundane daily life?
Oh, wow.
What if you practice composition of place while sitting across the dinner table from your spouse or your child? Instead of letting your mind drift to your inbox or your stress, what if you actively tuned your senses to notice their posture, the exact tone of their voice, the way the light hits the room?
That's a beautiful challenge.
If practicing this stops us from sleepwalking through our prayers, what invisible, beautiful details of our own lives might we suddenly wake up and start paying attention to?